Hey guys! It would normally be Betwixt the Books Day, but again, Gretchen is just coming back today, so she wasn't able to film a video, but she will be back later in the week, so look forward to all of that. Because she's not here, I can give you a recommends video by myself with a genre that I really love, that Gretchen is not the biggest fan of, so I'm going to take this opportunity to talk about it. Obviously, you know from the title that that would be horror. And anybody who's spent any amount of time with me knows that I really, really care about horror. It's one of the genres that I am very picky in because I care so much about the way that it makes you feel. There are times where I have gone on rants about movies to my friends, and Taylor is so tired of hearing me talk about Prometheus, but all of these things come to this point where, like, I really care about it. It's a genre I love, and I want to read more of. I haven't had a chance to because I was in school and I was reading mostly classics and literary fiction books, but now that I am home, I'm excited to touch some more, but I wanted to recommend to you guys some of the authors and books that I really love. If you want to know where I got my start with horror, I would probably say Edgar Allan Poe, but he's not entirely horror. He does have sort of creepy stories that everyone has to read in middle school, and that sort of got me interested in this darker side of writing, this darker side of fiction, and my dad was a big reader of Stephen King. I stole, actually, his copy of 4 Past Midnight, which is over there. I don't know if I'm in the way. The blue stack all the way at the bottom has 4 Past Midnight on it. That's a collection of his short stories, and honestly, if you have tried Stephen King and you have problems with his writing style, which is fair, it's very long and sort of drawn out, and he spends a lot of time on what you would think would be insignificant details, but actually end up being pretty important to building the ambiance and the plot of the story, maybe try some of his short stories, because again, the fact that they are short stories means that they are sort of condensed into this form where his writing style doesn't go all the way out in that direction. I wanted to talk about The Shining because that was the first book that I had, that I read of his. My sister currently has my copy, so I'm holding up Dr. Sleep, which is the sequel that just came out recently, a couple years ago. I'm not sure how I feel about this one. I have to reread it, and then maybe I'll do a video talking about it. Actually, I might reread both of them because I care about them, and again, I want to be reading more horror, so that is probably something that's going to be coming up either on my blog or here on the channel. But yes, Stephen King, as was said in my book unboxing last week, master of horror. This guy is who you look for when you hear horror or want to find horror. If you would rather find something more on the classic side, Lovecraft is your guy. Again, this is a huge name in horror. Lovecraft created Cthulhu. Cthulhu has sort of become a pop icon in some cases. This is just a collection of a couple of his stories. I liked it because the cover, look at that Cthulhu. Look how cute he is. Ooh doo doo. This is sort of your classic start in horror. You have weird cults and tentacle monsters and zombies and all of these sort of tropes set in like a 1920s 19-teens sort of era. If that sounds something that's more interesting to you as opposed to more modern horror where it's going to be sort of psychological thrillers and maybe, I mean, The Shining has ghost elements in it. All of these things are sort of different, and you can see how this turned into that if you read everything along the way. But classic horror, still great, especially if you're starting out. It's a little bit tropey if you have been reading horror for a long time, but at the same time, I would recommend this. If you prefer audiobooks, there are a lot of really well read audiobooks. If you have played Darkest Dungeon, the guy who does the reading in that has read a couple of H.P. Lovecraft stories, and he has the perfect voice to be reading these stories to you. Highly recommend checking those out. Now I'm going to talk about my favorite horror author, and that's going to be Joe Hill. If you don't know, this is actually Stephen King's son. He is far less prolific because he's younger, he hasn't gotten all of that stuff out there. His new book is coming out, I think, this month. It might already be out, actually, in which case I'm so behind. In any case, this is Nosferatu. This is my favorite book of his that has come out. It's slightly less on the horror side. There are definitely chapters and scenes and elements of this that are very horror-esque, but it is more of a slow build and about these characters as opposed to being about the plot. If you were looking for a very horror-based book by him, I would recommend picking up his first book, Heart-Shaped Box, because that is one of the best ghost stories that I've read in a while. I have some issues with it, and I think that he improves upon it here. Taylor prefers Heart-Shaped Box to Nosferatu. Nosferatu is second for him because of the atmosphere of Heart-Shaped Box being so well done, and that's honestly where his strength was, but I think that he improved on character building and all of that by the time he got to this one. I'm so excited to pick up the new one because I have read all of his books now and have watched him grow as an author. So excited. You're definitely going to see that one as soon as I get it. That one's going to be read. It's going to be consumed. That's what's going to be happening. If you prefer less of the in-your-face horror, where obviously there are horror elements going on, and you prefer more of a psychological horror, I would recommend House of Leaves by Z Danielewski. This is one of the main books that people talk about when they talk about postmodernism, because the pages do weird freaking things. There's footnotes, and stuff starts going sideways at some points, and yeah, all of that happens. This book made me scared, not for the characters, but for myself. It got in my head so much, as it's meant to do. That's what this book is about. Fear and interesting things. This one has a plot where it's talking about this house that's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside. At first it's just a couple of inches, then rooms are showing up that shouldn't make sense, then a door that should lead outside that actually leads into a whole nother weird, endless sort of dungeon thing, and it's creepy and scary, and you get to see what sort of happened to the people who look into this. Highly recommend this if you prefer psychological thrillers. It's less of a thriller, more of a horror, and obviously it's a postmodernist classic. Is it a little bit over the top? Yes. That's sort of the complaint that most people have, that it's too gimmicky. But I honestly was creeped out by it, so I'm going to have it on this list. The last book that I want to talk about is Southern Basterds, which is a comic, actually. If you would rather take your horror in visual form, I would recommend pulling this one up. If you prefer movies to books, maybe use this as a stepping stone because it has the intermediary of the reading, but you still get the visual elements. This is sort of an element of a Southern Gothic novel. It's creepy and spooky. The best part of this series is its atmosphere, but it's definitely a slow build. It's this slow mystery that you're coming to the end. You're learning all about this town. Each of the volumes follow a different character. This is the first one, and I think it's the most horror-tastic, if that's a word. So I would definitely recommend picking up this one. It's about an old man who goes back to his hometown because his father died, and he wants to sort of get his affairs in order, and he ends up getting pulled into this weird conspiracy that's going on that has to do with the football team. If you're from the South, I've heard that this is a very good representation of what it's like to live in a small town in the South, which makes me terrified because this is so creepy and weird to read. But yes, this is one that I would recommend for a horror comic. Obviously, there are a lot more horror books that I have read and own and need to read, but those are some of the ones that I would recommend if you're just starting out with horror or are looking for some definitely good books. Like, you don't want to pick and choose and test the waters. You want to pick something up that you know will give you those emotions and feelings of horror. Those are the ones that I would recommend. I might do another one of these if it ends up that Gretchen can't do a Betwixt the Books episode, or for one of my Friday videos if I do that. But that's all I have for you guys today, and I will see you soon. Maybe tomorrow. I haven't decided whether I want to do my comic post as a post or a video yet. I think I'm going to go with the post route just because I've done so many videos in a row that I'm starting to get a little bit burnt out and want to have that break. Plus I start my new job this week. So I don't know how much time I'll have to actually film and edit. So, this is what you get. I will talk to you at least by the end of the week with Gretchen for a weekly wrap-up, if not sooner, and I'll see you guys then. Bye!